Hi, everybody. All right, so it is Thursday, and today we're going to be talking about how to start brainstorming for your student Congress bill. So, as you can see up above, I've put the results for what our poll was from yesterday, our survey. So, you want to keep that in mind when you are planning your bill. So, if we have voted for a fun day, which I assume we will have, then make sure that you come up with a fun idea for your bill. If you are voting for a day that is, or if you're voting for a student congress that is serious, then go to that brainstorm idea sheet underneath here and make sure that you've chosen an idea that is a more serious bill. Okay. So if you look on Schoology, I've done this right here, on the bottom of today, you'll see it says brainstorm worksheet for bill writing. It's set up as like a test. It's not really a test. It's not going to fall under the test category or anything like that. But Google, like attaching Google documents to like Schoology assignments has gotten kind of difficult. And sometimes it's a little sketchy. So this was my solution for doing that. But that means that there's no time limit that I put on this, but you want to keep that open in a tab if you are, like stopping and then coming back to it later, because at the end you're going to want to submit it, and I want it to be submitted completed. So what I did was I took from this worksheet, which is posted on Schoology underneath here, I took information from each of these questions and I turned them into 10 questions on your assessment, this brainstorm sheet that you can fill out directly in Schoology. So the first thing you want to think of, question one, is what is the problem you see? And so you want to kind of think to yourself, okay, all bills solve some sort of problem. So this question is writing, like, I don't know, a very short paragraph about what the problem is that this bill has been created to solve. How do you think it should change? That's question number two. That's basically giving me information about what your bill is. So, for example, in the pony identification bill that I talked to you about, that Dylan Qualls and actually it was Kylie Barnes wrote together, their how do you think it should change was that the problem was that people are using false identification for a number of different things. How do you think it should change was that they eliminated all kind of paper or computer forms of identification, and instead they have a living form of identification that has its own DNA. Very weird. But anyway, that's how they determined it should change, and that's kind of the information that they wrote there for number two. Okay, next question. What terms do you think you may have to define in this bill? So part of your authorship speech will be, just like all other debates, defining terms. So because you haven't written your bill yet, you don't 100% know what kind of terms you might need to define, but this is kind of like a projecting ahead. What are some things that might need clarification? So is it identification? Is it DNA? Are you defining what a pony is? Things like that. And you can list those down. You don't have to define them. That's the question does not ask you to define them, but it has you kind of list what terms and then explaining why you think those terms are important. Okay, the next question is a more complicated one. So this is, whose jurisdiction will this bill fall under? Basically, who is the one who's responsible for making sure that people are actually upholding their end of the bill? And why did you choose that person? So the guides that I've included is if you've decided that your bill is something that should be a law that should be in McHenry County only, then you want to choose a governmental arm of the county. So if you go to the McHenry County website, like McHenry County government website, you can see the different arms of the county that will enforce this bill. So you want to choose what's the arm, the governmental arm that you go to. So go to the McHenry County government website and pick something. City of McHenry, Same thing. Is it going to be the mayor? Is it going to be the city police that are going to enforce this? Is it going to be somebody else entirely? Will it be a committee that will be formed in order to specifically enforce this bill, or a position in the government that'll be created to specifically enforce this bill? And then there's also a local school board. So if this is a bill that you're using that is something that should happen in McHenry High School, then the local school board are the people who would be responsible for carrying that out. Okay, good. If you've decided that your bill is something that you want to take place throughout the entire state of Illinois, then you want to go to the Illinois state governmental website, and you want to choose an arm of the government that will look at that. So I've given you examples. The Illinois State Board of Education, which governs all schools in Illinois. So if you wanted to do an education like bill, but you wanted to cover everything in Illinois, then that would be what you would choose. Or is it the Department of Health or the Department of Children and Family Services? What's the group that's going to be kind of overseeing this bill? If you've decided that this is a federal bill, then you want to find a branch of the government. So legislative, judicial, executive, decide what department within the federal government are you going to choose. Again, you can also choose to create an arm of the government that will oversee this. You could also choose things like CIA, FBI, things like that. Okay, and then finally, if it's an international law that you want to change for the whole world, then what international organization are you going to is going to oversee that? So choose an organization and explain why did you choose them. Okay, the next question, who will enforce this bill and why did you choose this? It's kind of the same, similar to this. It's probably going to be the same group, but it could be individuals within that group. Okay. So, for example, if you choose the executive branch of the government, the president is in the executive branch, but he's probably not going to enforce the bill. So he can oversee the bill, but you could have like local government law people who are enforcing the bill that will eventually be overseen by the executive branch of the government. Okay. Some questions about how they enforce this bill and what's the punishment for not complying with this bill. So if, for example, you are choosing that people should, I told you the red car one, no driving red cars on Monday. So if you're choosing no driving red cars on Monday, how will you enforce that? Will you have police officers out on the highway searching for red cars and pulling people over? And then what is the punishment for that? Do they get a fine? Do they immediately get their car taken away? Will they be shot at dawn? What is it? And is it graduated? Meaning, does it happen in steps? Like the first time that they're caught, X happens. The second time that they're caught, this happens. And then the third time that they're caught, this happens. When is the breaking point, and what's the ultimate punishment for that? And then you have to choose when the bill should be enacted and explain to me why you think it should be enacted on that date. Okay, how will you administer the fine? Who's responsible for it? Will it be sent to them in the mail? Things like that. Basically, I want to know what are some arguments that you believe will support your position. One of the questions in there is, what are some reasons, arguments / contentions that you believe will support your position? This is where you start developing your speech, and you put that down there. And then how are you going to find information for this topic? Be as specific as you can about where that information will come from. So here it's 12 questions, but I combined a couple questions. So on Schoology, it is 10 questions. It's brainstorm. So it's like throwing out your ideas for the bill. You can always change it when you're working on drafting your bill, and you can always change it basically whenever you want to. But this gives me ideas and gives you ideas for what it is that you're doing. So that's what your assignment is today. Tonight by 11:59, you want to go on to Schoology and make sure that you fill that out and submit that. Let me know if you have any questions. You can post them here, or you can send me emails. Okay, thank you for listening to this screencast. I hope that gives you some ideas of getting started with creating this kind of like rough draft idea for your bills. And I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about how you're going to take information from this worksheet and transfer them into your bill template, which will be due Monday at 11:59. All right. Have a great night.